right, let's get started. I am a Lightroom user. I have been since, I don't know, like version 6, whatever existed like in the late 2000s, like 2008, 2009. I've been using Lightroom a very long time. And a big part of using Lightroom is the process of making presets. And I started the shop, very good presets, got a lot of stuff on there. But when I tried to bring my presets over to Capture One, I failed miserably because even though I bought Capture One and I was thinking, color is color, right? Whatever you get into, whatever software it is, whether it's Lightroom, Capture One, Photoshop, Affinity, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, color rules still apply. I got into Capture One and I tried to wrap my head around it, failed miserably, and then I hired a Capture One master, Chris Prince, to recreate all of Very Good presets in Capture One. But I've always had this desire to figure out Capture One myself, dive into it, understand it, wrap my head around it, and see if all of the Capture One fanatics, because let's be honest, people that use Capture One really believe in its superiority over Lightroom. Everybody swears that it is just a much more powerful editor, and I just wanted to figure it out. And so I'm going to take you on that journey with me today as we just look at Capture One together. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have done a little bit in Capture One because as Chris develops these presets, I test them in Capture One to make sure they look and behave like their Lightroom counterparts. But when it comes to the advanced things in Capture One, I'm pretty new to this stuff. So we're going to look at Capture One with fresh eyes. If you are a Lightroom user, you're probably going to track right along with me as I try to figure it out. And if you are a Capture One user, you are probably going to be rolling your eyes at how simple this stuff is and how complicated I'm making it. But with all of that said, I have pulled 4 photos from a recent video I did in Death Valley. I'm going to link it right above. I've got 4 photos here, and we are going to use Very Good presets as our base on Capture One to begin playing with it and seeing what all Capture One can do. All right, let's get into Capture One. All right, the first image we are going to pull over is this image that I shot in the town of Darwin, California. For this photo, I'm going to be using Very Good presets Tri-X 120. So let's click on that, and boom, we did it. It's black and white. I think we're done. Now, if you are a Lightroom user, at this point, you would expect to see sliders and everything changing in all of your settings in Capture One. We don't see that until we hit Adjust. What we've got going on in Capture One are layers, kind of like Photoshop. We've got our image layer, and then we've got our preset Tri-X 120 right on top of it. If I go back over to Style, I can look at the modifiers that are included in this pack. One thing I will say that I do appreciate about Capture One is the check marks that are over here on the left side tell me what modifiers I'm using and what preset I'm using. In Lightroom, we don't get that. I'm back over to Adjust, and every one of those now has a layer. We've got the preset, the push, and the high contrast. But if I wanted to make edits, where do I click? I think for me, my gut would tell me to click on the image layer and just change like how the photo was shot. So I'm going to do that. But you Capture One users, and Chris, if you're watching, if that's not correct, be sure to let me know in the comments. I'm going to brighten it up just a touch more. I'm going to bring the shadows up just a little. Highlights down a little, sky's a touch hot, and I'm going to increase the contrast with the whites and the blacks. So far, this isn't overly complicated. It is making sense. We are playing with light. We're not playing with color, and that does help right now as beginners in Capture One. One thing that I'm noticing that is a little intense for me on this photo is the grain, and if I start scrolling top and bottom, I don't see the grain. That's because it's not in the top and bottom. It's over here on Refine, and the things in the Refine control here are across all of the layers as far as I understand. And I'm going to turn the grain down a little bit here. One thing that I have noticed consistently in Capture One is that the range of changes that happen as you move these sliders up and down is pretty huge. What would be like a plus 30 in Lightroom is like a plus 3, I feel like, in Capture One. These are very sensitive sliders. So now that we've turned grain down, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to switch it to a 4:5 for the crop. I also like how the crop overlay moves here rather than the photo itself moving. Okay, so back to the layer thing. As we've got our image layer, which is what I've been adjusting, we've got our preset, push, and high contrast modifier. I'm gonna actually add a new layer now, and it's adjustment layer 1. I'm gonna call this bottom fade. I'm gonna right click on it, and I'm gonna make it a fill mask. which I think is correct. And using the gradient tool here, I'm going to pull up from the bottom. This is just like Lightroom. On this layer now, I'm going to bring that exposure down some. On the curve now, I'm just going to add a couple of points and then fade the black point a little bit. That was too much. Wow, see how sensitive that is? The smallest movement is making a big change here. Okay, I've got the output at 5 just to get a little more black tone faded here, but I'm going to compensate for that. Yeah, and there we go. I think our first stab at trying something in Capture One, black and white was the right call. That wasn't too challenging. All right, we're going to move over to this photo. This is at the Mesquite Flat Dunes. And on this one, we are going to use Portra 400. If I come over here, I'm going to do Portra 400 Warm. And you know what I really appreciate about Capture One? If I don't like this preset, rather than having to reset the photo, I can just uncheck it. And it's back to normal. But I do like it, so we're going to click on that. I'm going to go up here to the modifiers. Going to choose this brown color grade. I'm going to turn the film grain down a little bit to 3010. And I think that that is a good starting point. Now let's go over to adjust. And here on these layers are the things that I just did. The grain is affected here. You see 3010 on soft grain. That was that modifier. But here we've got the brown grade and the Portra 400. And then we've got the image layer again, which is just affecting your raw file before you applied anything to it. I am going to bring these black tones down because I want this to be like buried shadows. Okay, see, that was a little much, went a little too far. Capture One is really sensitive. It reminds me of like the emo era. Hello, elder millennials. Gonna bring the brightness up a little bit, shadows down just a touch more, highlights up a little bit. Now, one thing I do in Lightroom often is I come over to the blue channel, and a lot of times I'll just put a little yellow in the sky just to get that almost like film, Kodak film look to it. Being that this is Portra, kind of makes sense. Going to pull the blue curve down a little bit, introduce just a touch of yellow into the sky. It's looking pretty good. It feels a little desaturated just because of the scene itself. So let's turn the saturation up. Now let's add an adjustment layer. I guess it's going to be a fill mask. Let's grab this little healing brush because I have a sensor spot. Ooh, right here. I guess I can just do this here. Okay, let's see what that does. Does that get rid of it? Oh yeah, that was nice. That worked. Yeah, I mean, I think we did it. I think this photo looks nice. If I was to do some before and after, I do definitely like this little slider here. We can do our raw file and then see our edit. Every time I get into Capture One and I start playing with the presets that Chris has made for Capture One from our Lightroom presets, I always feel like they look so much better in Capture One. So good for you guys that use Capture One. I feel like you guys have some really good stuff available. Now I'm going to break here for just a moment because you've been watching me edit some of my photos, but what I would love to do next is take some time to edit some of your photos. I'm going to do a video coming up where I take photos from the community, whether it's from our Discord, which is linked below, or you can just simply email me a link that's in the description below as well. And I want to pull some of your raw files into Lightroom, talk about what color or monochrome presets I would use on your photos and just edit them. And of course, give you a shout out on the channel and make sure people know what we're seeing and where it came from. But really, I just want a chance to edit your photos and dive into something you've done and created and keep talking about the editing process and color grading because it's a huge part of our lives as photographers. So be sure to send an email or a message on Discord with a link. All that info is right below. So get on that, send it over. All right, let's keep looking at Capture One. Let's go down to this bottom one. I feel like this is one of my favorite photos I've ever taken of a ghost town. Let's go back over to style. Let's try something a little different on this pack. Let's try Jupiter Mono. And then with the modifiers, let's make it high contrast. And we are going to push those midtones, make this very, very stark. So now that we're looking at this image, I'm going to go to the image layer. Again, probably doing this all wrong, but it is what it is. I'm going to bring the highlights down just a touch to soften it up. Going to bring the brightness up a little bit. One thing that is cool in Lightroom when you're working with monochrome is your ability to do the monochrome mixer. It's kind of the same thing just here. It's just always here. I can click on the blue channel and I'm going to bring the sky down a little bit What was once blue is now black. I do appreciate how smooth that is, and I'm not getting any weird artifacts between the blue tones of the sky and the white tones of the clouds. And now this image is looking very sharp. I think the grain on this photo looks really nice. I think it does maybe need to be straightened just a touch. I'm pretty sure this is the tool I need. Rotate freehand. Okay, so now with this tool, oh, yeah, it's green. Okay, let's do that. I always try to pick a point that's vertical to align it with. So I'm using the very middle of the building there and the green lines to the left and right of it to make sure I'm straight. That looks good, not too far off. I'm gonna come in here now, crop it in a little bit, and let's punch it right there. Oh yeah, our before and after, much more stark image. I can change this too, I think, to a full view. Oh yeah, there you go. One more image. We're going to take a look at this photo here. This was like a complicated scene because the subject is in the shade, but the highlights are all happening in the background. Let's go to style. Let's use Eastman on this photo. That looks awesome already. And then let's use the 1983 modifier. Let's come over to adjust, and on the image layer, let's turn up the shadows and see if we can, well, I mean, look at that right there. Like I've already gone up 20 and look how much brighter it is. I'm going to click that so you can do it again here. So Capture One has a ton of range in these sliders. I think that's the biggest difference with Capture One and Lightroom. Now, a couple of things that stood out to me as really different with Capture One, in this photo we can illustrate this, is this levels adjustment here. We don't have this in Lightroom. You have your RGB levels and you have your red, green, and blue. These are kind of like the curves in Lightroom, but like completely powerful. But let's talk about these levels for a minute, because up here, I can swing this level and introduce red tones, or swing it this way to introduce green tones. And that would be like in the mid-tones. You can do that here or here as well in shadows and highlights. So like, let's say like this photo looks a little green to me. So if I come to the green and I just swing it just a touch, swing these mid-tones to the right a little bit, I'm starting now to bring some of those red tones back in, because as you remove green, you bring in red. Our colors look kind of funky and purple now, so let's come over here and let's try to fix that. We're gonna try to fix it with the levels. There we go, it's a little bit better. Gonna warm it up just a touch. Still a little green. I've done messed this one up. Maybe we can hit it through this advanced color editor. If I just say, okay, there's a little bit of purple back here. Let me see if I can find it. There it is, the purple pink. Let's say I wanted to give that more range to add to that color and change the hue of it. I'm going to swing it really far in both directions. Okay, it's very subtle. I'm going to bring it this way, desaturate it a little bit, bring its luminance down. That looks pretty good. If I want to do the same thing with like this yellow grass here, okay, bring that up, give it more range. Okay, yeah, so there you go. This is definitely more of that like Lightroom style edits when you start messing with the color, but this is very, very like localized to that one color. Gonna increase saturation just a touch. It's looking a little nicer. Everything I'm doing is on the image layer. I probably should have made a new layer to do all of this. Every move is just really, really subtle. But I think this is looking pretty close to how I would want it. I like the blue of the sky. I like the color in the shadows and the color in the highlights. Let's go to the grain and let's just grain it up a little more. And the different grain settings are pretty awesome. Fine grain, silver grain, soft grain, cubic grain, tabular grain, harsh grain. There's like a lot of different grain settings, so you can really dial in that filmic look a little more intently than you can in Lightroom. All right, so there's our photos. We've got this one, we've got the dunes, we've got this photo from Darwin, we've got this photo from Rhyolite. All in all, Capture One feels pretty familiar, but with more tools and definitely more flexibility and more like things happening every time you touch one of the sliders. Now let's go over to Lightroom with these exact same 4 photos. I'm just gonna fly through these and show you guys kind of like our different outcomes using the same presets. We use Tri-X 120 on that one. There we go. And then, of course, you have all of your settings. You don't have layers. Layers is a really cool part of Capture One. Just going to bring this up. I'm going to make it high contrast. Going to do that 4:5 crop as well. Going to add that bottom part here. Then I'm going to fade those black points just a little bit. Bring the blacks down a little further. And that's our Lightroom edit. Now let's go to this one here. Let's do our Portra 400 preset. And remember, we buried the shadows, brought the black point down. We added some saturation to it. I put a little yellow into the sky. And there's our Lightroom edit. On this one, we used Jupyter Mono. We made a high contrast. Now, this modifier pack does not have a push for the midtones, but we'll give it a little push here just with that. We'll come down to our color mixer and we will bring those blues down as well. We'll try to give it that same or similar crop, straighten that up. And then this final photo we did with Eastman, going to bring those shadows up to get that light in there. We're using 1983, brighten it up, blacks down, contrast up, continue to brighten it up just a little more. And then I warmed it up a little bit as well. So obviously, after using Lightroom for, 15 years, no, more than 15 years now, I am very familiar with Lightroom. I feel very comfortable in Lightroom. I'm very fast in Lightroom, but I cannot deny that Capture One has a ton of power because of the layers, because of the ability to really refine your grain, change your levels. It's basically Photoshop and Lightroom combined into one app. So you might be wondering now, will I be switching everything I do over to Capture One? And the answer is no. I'm going to stay with Lightroom because it's what I know, and humans, we don't like change, and so I'm not going to change. I also don't need the power that Lightroom is giving me. I'm not that ruthless of an editor. I try to use the presets that I have created as single click with a few modifiers and then move on. And that's not a right or wrong thing, and that definitely doesn't mean if you spend 40 hours tweaking a photo, you're doing something wrong. We each have our own vision and our own style. But for me, I really do appreciate Capture One. I really appreciate its user base and the level of power the app has. And if you are looking to have a very powerful single stop editor, Capture One is definitely the place you want to be. But if you're looking for something a little more, I hate using this word, but consumer friendly, even if you're a pro, I consider myself a pro, but this is a very consumer friendly app, I'm going to stick it out with it. And this is, again, it's what I know and it works for me. So I'm staying here in Lightroom. But it is nice to know both. It's nice to be able to play with Capture One. And should I ever need a very powerful editor that I feel limited by Lightroom with, I'm going to go over to Capture One or have Chris do it. I'll just say, Chris, can you edit this for me? Because he's a pro. Very good presets are available both for Lightroom and for Capture One. If you like the color grades you saw, they're just some of many. You can go check out the shop. It is linked right below. We put a lot of care and effort and energy into these presets. And so if you pick them up, be ensured that we are going to stand by them, we're going to support them, and you're going to be empowered by them. I hope you found this video helpful and fun and enjoyed watching me struggle. And if you did, be sure to give it a like. And if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.